Hey, there, it's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment, thanks. Cautiously I lifted the brush out again and, with a bit of hesitation, began to paint the ring finger on my left hand. If I wanted to see if I had feminine hands, I might as well use the finger that was wearing the ring. With careful strokes, I painted it, making a bit of a hash of the job with blobs and stroke marks. When I had done, I left it on the table and stared at it. It certainly made a difference. Somehow the finger looked more delicate and ornate. I lifted my hand off the table and looked more closely. I didn't think I'd done that bad a job for my first time. I wondered what it would look like if I did the whole hand, so I began painting one of the other nails, and then another. Stopping to look at the effect from time to time, and completely absorbed in my work. "What's that smell?" asked John, making me nearly jump out of my skin. "It's Sarah, she's painting her nails," Anita replied. I nearly died. How on earth had she noticed what I was doing? "Sorry," I said, flustered, putting the brush away and the bottle down. "I was just messing about." "It's fine," Anita replied. I dared to look at her. She had sat herself up on the bed now, and was rearranging her jumper and her hair. "Now come on, John, it's time for you to go." "Not yet, haven't finished the coffee," he mumbled. "I don't care about that." "It's time for you to go," Anita said imperiously, as she stood up. Very reluctantly he stood also, not taking his eyes from the television. "All right. See you tomorrow?" "I don't think so," Anita replied. "I've got lots of homework to do." His only response was a grunt, and Anita led him by the arm out of the room. "I won't be long," she said to me as an aside from around the doorframe. "I'll just see him out, and come back up." I was still flushing from the discovery of my antics with the nail varnish. I stood up and walked around the room, not anticipating that Anita would be able to say goodbye to the monster very quickly. I lay myself down on the bed, taking great care to be on the side Anita had occupied rather than John, and picked up the remote control for the television. I idly flicked through a few channels, and then found one showing the highlights of the day's soccer matches. Now this at last was something to take my mind off things. I settled back onto the pillows, and began to watch. 5 or 10 minutes must have passed, and I was enjoying myself. Suddenly Anita burst back into the room, walked over to the television and switched it off. "I'm so sorry about that," she said. I told him not to come over, but he didn't pay any attention. I shrugged. "It's all right. It's not your fault. You must have been bored out of your mind," she went on. I was still coming out of football land. She had interrupted my team's match just as they were about to score. "It's all right," I managed to say. "I read a magazine." "And painted your nails," Anita added, sitting on the bed next to me. I winced. "Yes, sorry, I was just looking for something to do." "Well, let's have a look then," Anita demanded. Very reluctantly I lifted my arm and held it out for her. She took it and looked critically at my efforts. "That's not a bad job." "Have you done it before then?" "No," I responded. "Well then you've done really well." "You're right too. We ought to have thought about it earlier. You'll certainly need some nail varnish on for the formal round, and you might as well wear some with the uniform as well." She let go of my hand, and I pulled it back. They say that curiosity killed the cat. In my case, it had gotten me an extra bit of girl stuff to wear for the contest. "Do you want me to finish them off for you, and sort out your hair?" Anita asked. "No," I responded. "Not now. Perhaps we can do that in the morning." "Yeah, You're right, she replied, much to my surprise. She lay down on the bed next to me. It's getting late. We ought to start watching the film in a minute. My heart started beating faster. Anita was lying on a bed next to me. 1,000 passionate visions flashed through my mind, only to be interrupted by her father appearing in the doorway. We're going to bed in a minute, he announced. I thought you might want this. He brought in a 3/4 full bottle of white wine, and 2 rather elegantly cut glasses. Thanks, Dad, Anita said, as he placed it on the bedside table. You've not made up Sarah's bed yet, he observed. No, sorry. John coming around made us forget. Well, I'll give you a hand with it. I followed Anita's lead and got off the bed. Mr. Robinson pulled out an extra mattress from underneath and slid it to the window side. With Anita's help, he put a sheet and pillows on it and then put the duvet carefully on top. There you are, he announced when they had finished. That should be all right for you. Thanks, Mr. Robinson, I said in my sweetest voice. No problem. Now I don't want too much noise, Anita, and don't stay up too late either. I don't want you two lounging around in bed until midday tomorrow. No, Dad, Anita replied. We're just going to watch a film, and then we'll go to sleep. All right, he replied, and stepped over to kiss Anita goodnight. For one horrifying moment I thought he might do the same to me, but instead just said, Sleep well, Sarah. Thank you, I replied, you too. He smiled at me and left the room. Anita smiled, well, we might as well get comfortable to watch the film, she announced, and wandered off to her chest of drawers, and pulled out some pajamas. The top was gray and fluffy, with a picture of a kitten on it. She pulled off her jumper, and then, turning her back to me, removed her bra. My breath was taken away, Anita was stripping in front of me. She slipped the top on, and turned to face me again. Smiling, she said, I'll just go to the bathroom to put the trousers on. I thought we were all girls together, I whispered hoarsely, hoping to dissuade her. She tilted her head to one side. Maybe, but you would only try on your knickers in the hall, remember? With that she left. My mind was numb, I had just nearly seen Anita naked. My breath came fast and short. She returned wearing a loose patterned pair of pajama trousers as well as the gray fluffy top. We'd best sort you something out as well. I bet you can't wait to get out of those tights, you should have taken them off earlier. The tights were the least of my concerns at that moment. She returned to the drawer and looked around inside. She giggled for a moment. You could have this, she said, pulling out something flimsy, pink and nylon. No. I nearly screamed. Giggling again, she put it back. No, it's not very comfortable. She then found a long cotton shirt, cream-colored and edged in pink. Try this, she said, handing it to me. I took it. On the front was a cartoon picture of a little girl in an old-fashioned dress holding a bunch of flowers. Go on, she urged. I took off my jumper and undid the front of the skirt. You'd best keep your bra on, Anita said, looking at me thoughtfully. We'll need you still to have boobs in the morning. I pulled the skirt and slip off, and then the flowery pair of knickers. The next bit I knew from my experiences in the toilet would be tricky. I had to get my tights off without the white knickers underneath revealing anything. Then an idea struck me, I would put the nightshirt on first. I slipped it over my head, and let it fall over me. To my relief, it came down nearly to my knees. Now I was stuck because the waistband of my tights was inaccessible. I thought for a moment. I'll take my tights off in the bathroom, I announced. Okay, said Anita brightly, I'll just get the video ready then. I went off to the bathroom and managed to remove the tights. It was just as well I had left the room, because my knickers slipped down quite indecently, and I had to pull them back into place. I wondered for a moment whether I should take them off as well, but decided against it. Picking the tights up from the floor, I returned to the bedroom. Anita had set the video up, and we both sat on the bed to watch. There was not much conversation during the film. We stopped for a moment to fill in wine glasses and sip our drinks. Anita paused the film to go to the loo at one point, but immediately switched it back on when she returned. I wondered if I should make some sort of pass at her, but the moment didn't seem quite right. I actually got quite into the film, and at the end, I looked over and saw Anita was crying. I had something of a lump in my throat too, and lifted my arm, thinking about whether I should comfort her. Before I could do so, however, the film had finished. Anita ran over to switch the telly off, and wipe her eyes with a tissue. "That was really good," she said. "I just love Johnny Depp." She pulled out some of the wipes she had used earlier and brought some over to me on the bed. "You'd best take your makeup off, then we can go to sleep." She was doing the same, so I followed her lead, and wiped around my face and eyes. We threw the used wipes into the bin, and Anita climbed into bed. I thought for a moment and decided that the best thing to do was to climb into the visitor bed on the floor. I wondered about a good night kiss, but Anita seemed to be sleepy. "Good night, Steve," she whispered sleepily, "and thanks for everything." She switched off the light. "Good night," I replied, and lay down on the bed. What a day it had been. The bed was comfortable enough, but I did not sleep well that night. As well as the emotional turmoil of the day, somehow I could still feel the skirt against my thighs, and the pull of the tights on my legs, even though I had removed them. Where the boots had rubbed, just below my knee, I still had the sensation that I was wearing them. It was like people who I had heard on television describe, about losing a limb, and was most disconcerting as I tried to sleep. I could of course still feel my bra restricting my ribs, but Anita had insisted I wore it to sleep, along with the wig. Eventually I did fall asleep, however, and dreamt erotic dreams of running along beaches with Anita, and skipping through the waves hand in hand. I was awoken by her voice. "Hello, sleepy head," she said, leaning over the side of her bed. I opened my eyes, and saw her face smiling down at me. I blinked once or twice, and lifted myself up. "Honestly, what have you done to your hair?" "It's in a right mess," she declared. "We'll have to sort that out before we go down." She slipped out of her bed, and, shoving me over, slipped under my duvet. Kneeling up, while I rested on my elbows, she began to straighten the wig, which had slipped during the night. "That's better. It needs a brush, but at least it's in the right place." I breathed in Anita's warm smell. There was a faint trace of her distinctive perfume. I had no idea what it was, but I recognized it instantly as the smell of Anita, and loved it. She snuggled in beside me. "That was a really good film last night, wasn't it?" she asked me, smiling. I nodded in reply. "I love a good weepy, don't you?" I shrugged, "Sometimes." "We'd best have a look at your boobs too before we go down and see Mum and Dad," she announced, and pulled down the duvet to see what damage sleeping might have done to my sock-filled bra. "They've not done too bad," she declared, after a brief inspection. "We'll just need to fluff them up a bit. Hang on." Without any ceremony, she lifted my nightshirt, revealing the white knickers with the love heart on, and thrust her hands up, cupping my boobs. Please subscribe for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.